Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. Today is a very exciting day because I've been invited to the media launch of the new M3 and M4, and as a BMW fanboy I can't explain to you how exciting this is. I know I don't overly get excited about my videos, but I'm really looking forward to drive these cars, and to be given the opportunity to drive them before anyone else is really cool. So what we're going to do is go over to the Toronto Red M3 over there. So we've got this car for the morning, and then we have to bring it back, and then we're going to jump in an M4 and give the driving impressions of that. I'm not expecting them to be too different, but that's the way they've split the day. So let's jump in this car and show you what it's all about. So we've just jumped in the Toronto Red M3, and immediately I have to say, with these carbon seats, the interior is absolutely amazing. I know I've said this in nearly every video with a new BMW, but the interiors just keep getting better and better, to the point that they are starting to get on par with the Audi RSs and the Mercedes. It's a shame that our car that we've ordered, we did order carbon seats, but it would have delayed the order by about 8 weeks, so we've had to take a car that's in stock. So we'll reveal that on Saturday, but it doesn't have the carbon seats, but the seats are really supportive and they look amazing. Probably not so good for people that are daily in the cars. Maybe getting in and out of them is a bit more of a hassle, but I would definitely forego that comfort to have these, just because of the way they feel and the way they look. So this is literally my first time driving the car, so I can't really share impressions with you, but we're going to spend a couple of hours with both cars, and then I will be able to formulate my views on how this drives and compare it back to maybe the F80 and even the E92. So I've had about an hour or so driving the M3. We have to drop it back off in about half an hour, so I'm going to give some initial feedback on the car before we jump in the M4, and I'll have a little bit longer in the M4, got most of the afternoon in it. And first thing I will say is the car has a lot of grip. Compared to the F80 in standard form, this car has as much power as a tuned F80 M3, but the way it puts its power down is much more confidence inspiring than the F80. It's got a lot of mechanical grip, a lot of lateral grip going through the corners, and it is very powerful. It'll be really interesting to get some timed acceleration runs, especially when we get our car, to see what the difference is between the old and the new model. The other thing I would like to mention is the way the car rides. That's always been a bugbear of mine on M cars. Well, and this, even in sport setting on the suspension, is riding along these bumpy roads incredibly well, and better than a lot of M cars that have come out recently. They're always a little bit jittery, but this is good. It sounds pretty good as well. I mean, that's a lot of active sound coming through, but hopefully the outside shots will give you a sense of what the car sounds like. From outside, it's got a nice bit of overrun, it's got a nice tone, and for a car with a CAT and an OPF, it's really impressive. And if this car has got this much grip for a rear-wheel drive model, the all-wheel drive is going to be amazing. I mean, it's like 5 degrees today, it's very cold. It's got PS4Ss on it, which I'm glad about, and hopefully most of them come with those. I have seen a few with Pirellis, but I won't be happy if I get a set of Pirellis on my car, so I'll be looking to swap those out ASAP. But so far so good. Pretty impressed with it, to be fair, but you really need to drive the car a little bit more. You'll get much more detailed impressions when we get our car and I can spend some time with it on familiar roads, but initially, yeah, it's pretty impressive. Also, the interior, seriously guys, this interior is so good. I felt at home immediately in it because it's very familiar, but just these carbon buckets are very supportive, they look amazing, and just in general the car itself has got full leather on top of the doors, on top of the dash. It's very, very premium. I'm loving these new paddles. They're carbon fiber and they've got a red inset at the back which comes through the plus and the minus. It looks fantastic. So we're going to head back now to BMW headquarters and pick up the M4, and I can share more of my thoughts after I've driven that for a while. So I've had a morning in the M3 and a couple of hours, well, 2 hours in the M4 now, just getting the panning shot. So I'm forming a good opinion of both cars. Obviously they drive both identically. I can't tell the difference on the road, and I wouldn't expect to. Maybe on the track you might be able to discern a little bit of difference, but from speaking to BMW guys, there isn't any between the M3 and M4. Firstly, the interior, as I mentioned previously, is really, really nice. These buckets are amazing, and it's a real shame that our order would have been delayed if we carried on with the spec that we had with these carbon buckets. So we're going to have to make do with the normal ones on our first car, but they're very supportive, they look amazing, and in this car they're two-tone, so they really show the carbon off and the leather and the Alcantara, but they do really hold you into the seat and they look fantastic. So the whole back of them's carbon. Get Matt to get some shots of those so you can see. The interior overall is very plush. It's very much more to the level the F90 M5 is, and as you guys know, I'm a real fan of that car. The steering wheel is a little bit on the thick side, but I can live with it. The power, the way the car delivers, the power is just, it's got a really fat torque curve. So I'm sure once we get into the dyno, we'll see it making peak torque and holding it for quite long. But the S58 engine is amazing, and it's going to have a lot of tuning potential once the ECUs are unlocked. And as I confirmed in the morning, the car has plenty of grip, to the point where in these kind of conditions, I mean, it's dry, but it's very cold. The F80 M3, even in stock form, would struggle, but this does not. It's in MDM, and you don't even feel it interfering, which in an F80 M3, even in stock form, you would, and if it was tuned, then you would feel it interfering a lot. And the MDM in this car is actually very nice. It actually does give you a bit of slip before it intervenes, so you can have some fun with it if you're not so confident with sliding the rear end out. And if you watched the video of us discussing the exterior design of the car, you would have noticed that I said the rear brakes are really disappointing because the front's a huge multi-piston and the rear's a single. But the brakes do an amazing job on the road. They're very progressive, they feel really good. And obviously I cannot speak for what they'll be like on the track, but on the road they do a really good job. So I've got the car in sport suspension and sport steering. I find the steering a little bit light for me. I'd like a little bit more weight on there, but you can feel where the front of the car is and place it where you want it. And it's just the ride. I'm really surprised at how well the car rides, because I've always been disappointed with how a stock M car rides on the bumpy B roads we get in England, but this really seems to be in tune with these kind of roads that are really enjoyable to drive, but normally M cars are a little bit skittish on. And if I recall back to when the F80 was released. Before our current one, which is the competition pack, we did have a normal one, and that was very savage. It had a lot of power low down, which they fixed afterwards, and the traction control just couldn't keep up with it. This seems very much more dialed in. Oh, and the noise. So this car is an OPF, has the cat in place. It does all the overrun noises. It does sound really good. So at the moment you're hearing the active sound from inside, but even from outside the car does sound very toneful. And obviously this is just my review of the car. Please check out other people's reviews to get their viewpoint. So Joe Achilles has had one of these and he's been driving his around, so we'll put a link to his channel so you can check his video out. And also Queen Bee is also at this launch event and she's been driving the car all day, so please check both of their reviews out. And we're hoping to get out with Becky and do a comparison back to back. So we want to get an F80 or an F82 M4 and then do a back-to-back comparison, a bit like I did with Joe with the GP3 and the Yaris. But for now, I mean, initial impressions are really good. I'm pretty impressed with how it is straight out of the box, and it's a definite improvement over what the F80 M3 was when that was new. Obviously the F80 M3 and F82 M4, they didn't improve that car as they went along with a competition pack and then with the CS, and the little tweaks they made to that car did leave it at a very good stage. But this car is already at a stage where it feels like it's got a stage 1 tune on it, and the suspension is dialed in really, really well. So there you have it, my initial impressions of the new G80 M3 and the G82 M4. I've been really impressed with it, but obviously I'd like to drive the car a lot more to form some real long-term views. I'm looking forward to picking our car up on Saturday from BMW Park Lane and giving you guys a much more long-term, what is it like to live with, what is it really like to drive. Because when you come to one of these press days, we've been here all day, but you can't really push the car that hard. You don't have that much time because you're trying to get the shots. So I'm looking forward to really gelling with the car and seeing what it's like. On first instance, would I take it over an F80 M3? I do own one myself. Stock for stock, 100%. This car is a massive improvement over the standard F80 M3, especially over the pre-LCR ones, and even more so over the competition pack. But this car is modified. We've spent a lot of money on the suspension, getting it to a point where I feel it is as nimble as our M2, which I completely love. And this car does have a lot of power to keep it exciting. But the M4 and M3, G80 and 82 are going to be a fantastic platform moving forward. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe to the channel and turn your notifications on. If you want to join the conversation, please drop us a comment below and we will do our best to respond to you. And if you're running out of things to watch, why don't you watch one of these two?